On August 6, 1945, President Harry Truman signed the order to release the bomb over Hiroshima, killing over 80,000 people upon detonation. One eyewitness at Hiroshima recalled, "I climbed Hikiyama Hill and looked down. I saw that Hiroshima had disappeared. I was shocked by the sight. Of course, I saw many dreadful scenes after that, but the experience looking down and finding nothing left of Hiroshima was so shocking, I simply can't express what I felt. Hiroshima didn't exist. That was mainly what I saw. Hiroshima just didn't exist. The sky seemed to explode. Birds ignited in midair and asphalt boiled. Men without feet stumbled about on the charred stumps of their ankles." Up until the bombing, the US had the upper hand throughout the whole war. Starting from 1942 all the way through 1945, the US began pipe bombing Japan. Throughout this campaign, over 1.7 million Japanese soldiers were killed. The afternoon of the bombing of Hiroshima, the Japanese cabinet met to discuss if Japan should surrender, saving Japanese lives. This vote was ultimately split 3-3. You see, in Japanese culture, fellow warriors followed the code of Bushido, the 7 principles being integrity, courage, respect, honor, compassion, honesty, and duty. Japanese warriors had a strong sense of pride and refused to surrender, as it would seem to be a disgrace to the country if they surrendered. Warriors in lieu of defeat would practice a ritual of harikari, or death by their own sword. As they would disembowel themselves, falling onto their sword, a tradition for soldiers to create a death poem. My favorite of which being from Zhao Wanshun. It reads, "I have been on the path of war for 3 years, and now I became prison of the war. Tears are everywhere in mountain and river. Who will say the heaven is wide? I know my death is close. And hard to farewell my homeland on the day of my soul coming back. I hope I can see the Manchu troops is defeated." Knowing the Japanese wouldn't surrender, the US had to create a plan to end the war, and more importantly to the US, save American soldiers. The recent blockbuster movie Oppenheimer talks about the development of the atomic bomb. The movie focuses on how Oppenheimer feels as he's created a weapon that could possibly end humanity, and talks of the psychological impact that the weapon created. After seeing the impact that the atom bomb created, Secretary of War Henry L. Stimson decided the only way to get Japan to surrender would be to showcase the immense power that the United States held within their atom bomb. Ultimately, the US bombed Hiroshima to strike fear into the Japanese people. When choosing where to drop the bomb, Stimson had one mission: to get as many people to see the explosion as possible. A bombing of just a military site wouldn't strike fear into the people, as the people would not be able to see the explosion, and the psychological impact of the bomb wouldn't be effective. The United States wanted to spare cities with historical significance, so cities like Japan and Kyoto were not chosen. Hiroshima ultimately was chosen as an estimated 60,000 people would be able to see the bomb wipe out their city. After the Japanese cabinet failed to surrender after the bombing of Hiroshima, the US attacked Nagasaki. 5 days later, the Japanese surrendered for the first time in their country's history. The sight of the atomic bombs was so devastating, it led to disbelief and terror among the Japanese people. A 12-mile-high mushroom cloud just stood atop the city. This horror led to the inspiration of the 1988 film, Akira. The film opens taking place in 1988. Tokyo has just witnessed an explosion caused by a psychic child named Akira. This led to the construction of Neo-Tokyo. We are then fast forward 33 years to present day. The city has been rebuilt and is littered with the setting of a dystopian future. The city faces a stark divide between the affluent upper class and the marginalized lower class. With vast disparities in wealth and living conditions, gang violence is rampant. Political tensions simmer beneath the surface. We then meet Tetsuo. Tetsuo is a member of a biker gang led by his close friend Kaneda. Tetsuo is depicted as a hot-headed, harboring his feelings of inferiority due to his perceived weakness compared to Kaneda and other members of the gang. Tetsuo's life takes a dramatic turn when he encounters a mysterious mystic child called Takashi, who has escaped from a government research facility. After a motorcycle accident involving a psychic entity awakens latent psychic abilities within him, Tetsuo begins to exhibit increasingly uncontrollable and destructive powers. As his powers grow, so does his ego and his thirst for dominance, leading him down a dangerous path of mania and violence. The unrest of the people of Neo-Tokyo shows how uneasy the people of Japan were following the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The unrest of the people of Neo-Tokyo shows how uneasy the people of Japan were following the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. In the film, one significant source of fear in the public consciousness is the government's involvement in secret projects, particularly its experiments with psychic abilities and the existence of individuals with extraordinary powers. The public is largely kept in the dark about these experiments, leading to suspicion and paranoia about the government's true intentions and the potential danger posed by these psychic phenomena. The fear of the unknown and the uncontrollable is led by the emergence of characters like Tetsuo, whose sudden acquisition of psychic powers destabilizes the social order and threatens the safety in life and city. The fear of the unknown and the uncontrollable is led by the emergence of characters like Tetsuo, whose sudden acquisition of psychic powers destabilizes the social order and threatens the safety of the entire city. As Tetsuo's power grows increasingly destructive and uncontrollable, the public grows increasingly fearful of the chaos and devastation he could unleash. In Akira, the fear of another catastrophic event and the emergence of psychic powers creates a sense of anxiety and uncertainty among the public. This fear drives societal paranoia, political corruption, and social unrest, mirroring the post-war anxieties and traumas experienced by real people affected by Hiroshima and Nagasaki. In both in-movie and real life, government authorities play a significant role in shaping public perceptions and responses to threats posed by atomic weaponry and the powers led by Tetsuo and Akira. In Hiroshima, the Japanese government and later the occupying Allied forces controlled information about the bombing, while in Akira, the government suppresses information and its psychic experiments and tries to maintain control over the increasingly chaotic situation in Neo-Tokyo. Both the atomic bombings and the events in Akira raise profound ethical and moral questions about the use and abuse of power. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki continue to provoke debate about the justification of such extreme measures in warfare and the moral responsibilities of those involved. Similarly, in Akira, the actions of those in government and military in conducting secret experiments and manipulating individuals for their own raise questions about the unethical boundaries of scientific research and abuse of power by those in authority. One of my favorite themes in Akira is that of existentialism. One of the central existentialist themes in Akira is the exploration of identity Tetsuo undergoes in a profound existential crisis as he grapples with questions of where his self lies within him. Initially, he is portrayed as troubled and insecure, and his participation with the biker gang, Tetsuo's discovery of power leads him to question his place in the world and the nature of his own identity. He is faced with the opportunity to reinvent himself and ultimately the world with his newfound power. The movie suggests fulfillment with identity in a different way with Kaneda. Similarly, Tetsuo's journey, while filled with existential angst, ultimately leads him to confront his own limitations and to assert his own destiny. The film ultimately contrasts the two, as Kaneda's resolve leads him to have a better look at his own morals. Tetsuo's new definition of purpose, not being backed by any beliefs, but just the search for power, ultimately leads for the destruction of him and those around him.